The first time I noticed the way Dr. Hale looked at me, I was sitting on his clinic table with a rolled towel under my thigh and an ache just sharp enough to make me wince. The fluorescent lights buzzed above, a little too loud, and the room smelled of antiseptic and something sterile but citrusy. I was shirtless. He wore that clean white coat over a tight black dress shirt, and when he touched the side of my groin to check the healing, I could have sworn his fingers lingered a moment. "Too long. Still tender?" he asked, eyes focused downward, but his voice had shifted. Lower. He wasn't nervous. Just careful. "Yeah. A bit," I said, watching him through the mirror on the wall behind him. He looked calm, professional. But when his palm pressed, just below the waistband of my gym shorts, something in his throat caught. Barely, but enough. I should have pulled away. Instead, I inhaled and held still. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the loneliness I hadn't admitted to myself yet. Or maybe it was because I liked the way his hands felt. Measured. Like I wasn't just another body on his schedule. He cleared his throat and stood upright. "You've made good progress, Jordan. Probably another week before you're fully back." I nodded and jumped down from the table, adjusting my waistband a little higher, but not too fast. I wasn't showing off, at least not intentionally. He turned away to jot down notes, but I saw the way his shoulders shifted. Not tense, exactly. More like aware. Ethan had driven me here. He was in the car, texting clients or scrolling through some boring feed of inspirational posts. He and I had been together for almost 2 years. Solid, stable, and honestly kind. But lately, he felt more like a partner in routine than a partner in fire. We kissed like people who knew how, not like people who needed to. Dr. Hale, on the other hand, looked like a man who remembered need. 41, married, 2 kids I'd overheard once. He wore a wedding band that shone when the sun hit it, but I never heard him mention his wife. "You're all set," he said, breaking the pause. "But if anything doesn't feel right, I want you to call. Don't wait. Got it?" There was weight in those words. Not just medical concern, like he was asking something else underneath. I nodded again, slower this time, then opened the door and stepped out. But not before looking back. He hadn't moved. His pen hovered mid-air. That night, lying beside Ethan, I kept thinking about Dr. Hale's hands. I knew it was wrong. Ethan had done nothing but trust me, had driven me to that appointment, held my gym bag on his lap, kissed my forehead like always. And yet, as I turned to face the ceiling in the dark, all I could feel was the memory of fingers pressing into skin too close to where temptation lived. I told myself it was just curiosity. A one-off, harmless. But the truth was, I liked being seen, desired, not for who I was supposed to be, Ethan's boyfriend, the good patient, the smiling son, but for something darker, heavier, something neither safe nor simple. 2 days later, I got a text from a private number. "Clinic's quieter on Saturdays. If you need a checkup." M. No name, no emojis, just that. I stared at it for a long time, rereading it like it might change. Ethan walked in behind me with 2 mugs of tea, humming something off-key, and kissed the back of my neck. I smiled. Automatic. He sat beside me, warm and gentle, offering me the kind of comfort you're supposed to want. And yet, I couldn't stop staring at the message. There was no emergency. No real reason to go back. Except one. I wanted to see how far Dr. Hale's hands would go next time. The clinic was quiet, almost too quiet for a Saturday. No receptionists, no other patients. Just the sound of distant traffic outside and the faint ticking of a wall clock above the door. I walked in wearing sweatpants, no underwear. I told myself it was for comfort. But comfort wasn't the truth. I already knew what I was doing, even if I hadn't said it out loud. Dr. Hale met me at the entrance. No lab coat this time, just a fitted gray sweater and slacks, like he hadn't quite decided whether this was professional or personal. He gave me a nod that barely passed as a greeting and locked the door behind me. "Glad you came," he said, voice quieter than usual, like the silence around us demanded respect. I gave a half smile. "Thought you said I needed a checkup." His gaze dropped, just for a moment. "Right. Let's take a look." He led me back into the exam room, dimmer than I remembered it. The blinds were half drawn, light spilling in through slats that striped the floor. It was warm, intimate, not clinical at all. "Same spot hurting?" he asked. I nodded and hopped up onto the table. He stepped closer, setting down a clipboard he wasn't using. His hands hovered before touching me, fingers brushing the edge of my waistband like he was still asking permission without saying it. I gave it. He eased my sweatpants down slowly. No rush, no words. His breath hitched the moment I was exposed, but he didn't look away. Instead, he knelt slightly, eyes level with everything I was no longer hiding. "You're healing well," he murmured, but the examination never began. Instead, his hand rested on my thigh, still, unmoving, like he needed to feel the pulse of the moment before crossing the line. I didn't stop him, not with words, not with my body. I just let him linger because part of me wanted him to. No, needed him to. "Marcus," I said, the first time I'd ever used his first name. It came out half whispered, half daring. He looked up, startled, not because he didn't like it, but because hearing his name stripped away the mask. The professional, the husband, the man in charge. All gone. He stood, face inches from mine. I smelled mint on his breath, saw the nervous tremble in his jawline. "This isn't right," he said, and I believed he meant it. "Then stop," I replied, challenging him. He didn't. His lips found mine like we'd kissed before in another life. No urgency, just heat. Gentle, slow. His hands slid along my sides, exploring, reverent, like he was discovering something sacred, even in the wrongness of it all. My fingers clutched the hem of his sweater, pulling him closer, grounding us both, in a reality we couldn't excuse but couldn't escape either. There was no rush, only surrender. His hands, so skilled, so steady in the exam room, were now unsure, trembling with desire he'd tried too long to bury. I guided him, just enough to let him know I wasn't afraid. He kissed lower. My breath hitched. The air felt thick with want. But then, he stopped, mid-motion, sat back on the rolling stool beside the table, breathing hard, chest rising. "I have a wife," he said, eyes locked on the floor like it hurt to admit. "I have a boyfriend," I replied, my voice softer now. He looked up. "Then why are we here?" The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full, loaded, like an answer we both understood but didn't want to say. Because we were there for the same reason people jump into rivers they know are cold. Not because it makes sense, but because the stillness of not doing it hurts more. He stood again, this time slower, placing a hand on my shoulder and kissed me, one final time. Less lust, more something else, something fragile. "I can't do this again," he said, and I wasn't sure if he meant it. I pulled my pants back up, stood, and nodded. We didn't touch after that. No promises, no apologies. Outside, the city hummed like nothing had changed. But in that room something had, not just between us, but inside me. As I walked away from the clinic, phone buzzing with a message from Ethan asking when I'd be home, I felt the weight of two lives, pressing against each other, neither one fully mine, neither one fully honest. And I knew this wasn't over. Not really. Ethan found out on a Tuesday. Not because I told him, I should have. God knows I rehearsed it in the shower, at red lights, in that half-second of silence between waking up and hearing his breath beside me. But no, he found out the way all hurtful things eventually surface by accident. He'd borrowed my phone to order Thai. His had died. I wasn't worried, I'd deleted the messages. Except one. A single line from Marcus that I'd forgotten to clear from my archived emails. Still thinking about Saturday. I shouldn't be. That was all it took. I came out of the bathroom to silence. No music, no phone in his hand. Just Ethan, sitting stiff on the edge of our bed, like his body didn't belong to him anymore. "What's this?" he asked, eyes fixed straight ahead. I didn't answer. My voice failed me. He held up the phone, that single message open like a wound. "Who's Marcus?" I opened my mouth, closed it, then said the first thing that came to mind. "My doctor." Ethan nodded, slow. "And what exactly happened on Saturday?" The way he asked it was what broke me. No rage, no dramatic accusations. Just the hollow steadiness of someone who already knew, who was giving me one final chance to be decent before it all collapsed. I sat down across from him, shoulders heavy. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. He laughed once, sharp and bitter. Is that supposed to make it better? I shook my head. No, it's just the truth. He stood, crossing the room without looking at me. He didn't throw anything, didn't cry. He just picked up his keys, like muscle memory took over where feeling failed. "You could have just told me, Jordan. I might have hated it less if you'd had the guts to say it out loud." The door clicked shut behind him, and the silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was punishing. That night, I sat on the couch with the lights off. My phone buzzed once. Marcus. I didn't open it. I just stared at the screen until the YY message faded into black again. Days passed. Ethan moved out. Quietly. No shouting, no parting gifts of cruelty. Just an empty drawer, a gap in the closet, the faint smell of his cologne on one pillow. He didn't block me, but he stopped answering. And that silence hurt more than anything he could have said. Marcus, too, disappeared. One last message came through a week later. "I've decided to tell my wife. I don't expect forgiveness. But I needed to try and find the man I used to be. I hope you do too." There was no signature. No invitation to continue. I deleted it, then stared at the empty inbox like it might teach me something. For weeks, I kept returning to that clinic in my mind. Replaying his hands, the heat of that room, the thrill that had seemed so alive in the moment. But now, it all felt distant, like watching someone else make the mistakes I couldn't undo. It wasn't just sex. That would have been easier to forgive. It was the need, the raw hunger to feel wanted again. Not loved, wanted, desired in a way that made you feel seen beneath the skin. But desire without honesty is a fire in a locked room. It'll light you up, sure, but it'll also burn down everything you've built. A month later, I stood in front of my mirror, alone. My reflection looked older, less sure. The confidence I'd once worn like armor had slipped, revealing something softer underneath. Maybe guilt, maybe clarity. I ran a hand over my chest, down to the waistband of my sweatpants. It didn't feel the same anymore, not like it had, in that exam room. I whispered to no one in particular, what did I even want? The mirror didn't answer. It never does. But I kept standing there, staring at a version of myself I didn't fully recognize. Not yet. Maybe someday I'd look at that reflection and see someone worth trusting again. But tonight, I just saw the cost of being seen, and the wreckage I'd left behind in the name of wanting more. And still, a part of me knew the story wasn't over. Not until I figured out who I was without the hands, without the eyes, without the thrill. Just me, naked, flawed, and painfully honest.